Hello, everyone. I don't know if anyone's there, but hopefully, if someone is there, tell me if you can see me and if you can hear me okay. I haven't done this in a while, so I might be screwing it up. I see a comment from Emily Reads. Dairy is one, I think. Dairy is one what? So I haven't been around in a long time. A bit over 5 months, I believe. And I just recorded a video. First video I've recorded in over 5 months. Basically explaining why I haven't been around. I don't know if I really want to get into it too much here. Basically, I think it's probably enough to say I have a problem with depression. And the video will be coming out tomorrow, getting into more detail. So, Mr. Navo, cool, man. Would you like to join me on screen, Christopher? I'd be happy to send you a link. Jerome, good to see you, man. The Rogue, Emily Reads, Marina. I don't know if I remember seeing you before, Marina. Maybe you got on the channel after my pause started. KTU3, hello. Thank you for the welcome back. We will see exactly how back I am. I am going to be trying my best to do one video a week, starting basically now. And I've got the first video lined up for tomorrow, explaining why I haven't been around for so long and what I plan to do going forward. Wait just a sec, and I'll send that Navo guy a link if he would like to join me. How have you all been? What have you been reading? Is the question you always have to ask first. Wait a sec, that's wrong. Delete message. Okay. So, Marina, you've been around for a long time, but you are what is known in the parlance as a lurker. That's fine. It's nice to know people are, hey, Evie. I haven't been doing that well, I'll be honest, Evie. But I am starting to do weller. Let's put it that way. I'm just inviting Mr. Navo. Okay. Navo is at the park with his dog, but I've sent him a link. He can join if he wants. Hey, Jared. Good to see you, man. You're also welcome to join if you would like to. Ping me and I will let you know how to join. I'll send you the link. K2U3 also fighting depression. Yeah, it's a bitch. I have not been enjoying it. For anyone who joined late, that is the main reason I haven't been around for 5 months, is depression's been kicking my ass. I have a life at the moment that actually contributes quite well to more depression and to not getting out of it as quickly as might be possible or as you would like. I'm very single. I live in a flat alone. I work mostly from home, so I don't have that much reason I have to go out every day. But yeah, And it's kept me from reading for the last 3 or 4 months, which is depressing in and of itself, but I'm getting back to it. Um, it does make me feel better, Marina. It's lovely that people are excited about the channel. So me putting up a live stream like this, exciting someone is exciting for me. The God is Not Willing and rereading Blood Meridian. I have just been watching. This is also something like with the depression. I basically haven't been doing anything except playing video games for a few months. But I've been playing video games a lot. And just in the last couple of days, I started watching everybody's channels again and catching up, which I haven't been doing. I haven't been watching any booktube really for months. And just doing that in the last few months, a few days, sorry, has excited me. You know, watching some of the live chats and all of that and feeling excited today, I thought I'll throw in a surprise live stream. What have I been playing? K2U3 asks. I was playing Diablo 4 when it came out, which was really fun until it got boring, which didn't take that long because it's a very repetitive kind of game. It's just the kind of game that it is. I was super excited about the launch of or release of Starfield, and I played the hell out of that for a bit. And just recently, I have been playing the hell out of Baldur's Gate 3. So I promised mystery guests, and here are a couple.
Hello.
Joanna, good to see you. Dan,
Good to see you too.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
I wish I could give you a hug through the screen. I missed you.
That would be awesome. I've missed you too.
Give both of you hugs through the screen. Sorry.
I was watching a number of your videos today, both of you actually. And that is a lot of what made me get excited about the idea of recording a video, which I just did, which will be out tomorrow, kind of explaining what the fuck has been up with me for the last 5 months. And then also I was like, why don't I just do a live stream and see who joins? This is kind of like my 1K live stream where I just invited a whole bunch of people and thought, well, we'll see who actually jumps on. How are you both doing?
I'm doing great. I have a lot of things going on this weekend, like as far as like tasks I'm trying to get done, but I definitely didn't want to miss out on just catching up with you for a little bit.
Yeah,
And
cool.
yeah, I'm so happy that you're going to be making a return to BookTube. I would love to hear more about what you've been up to and what maybe pulled you away for a while, if you're comfortable talking about that.
I have a whole video about that, 10 minutes long, coming out tomorrow.
Okay.
I recorded it. I didn't do any fancy editing, so it's basically ready to go, and it'll be out tomorrow morning, your time, I think. Yeah, morning-ish, your time. Yeah, interesting to try and be really open about mental health.
Yeah.
Which I usually am not at all. I don't want anyone to know about it, but a lot of people have set a good example, and Dan is one of the ones I mentioned in the video. He's been like super open and clear and direct about your addiction issues and your mental health issues, and Tori.
Yeah, definitely, and they come
people.
hand in hand. There's plenty of people out there with dual diagnosis, addiction, and mental illness, and I think many people are that have mental illness do become addicts because they find comfort in a certain feeling a certain way. But with that aside, yeah, I think we all struggle. It's coming up to daylight savings here. The times are changing. The hoodies are coming out. Pumpkin spice is invading everything. And
you and pumpkin spice, you've got like a Anti-pumpkin spice mission.
I'm all pumped. I'm all for pumpkin spice, but don't put it on my fillet at Outback. You know what I mean? Like, don't go overboard.
That is
I
a
do
bit.
not want to
That's
see a
kind of
pumpkin
insane.
spice e-cigarette. I'm cool with the lattes. We should have stopped at the lattes. So, but yeah, it's getting colder. The kids are going back to school. The summer's over. At least for me, that my vacation. That's at least for me. That's when I have my vacation is the summer. And now I know I'm not going to get that much time. It's going to get cold. I'm going to be stuck in the house. I work from home
It's
as well.
already. I mean, I can't translate it off the top of my head to your temperatures, but it's already cold here and raining pretty much every day in Berlin, and it's not great weather for mood. Evie says, "I will be ecstatic. Dan read and loved The Spear Cuts Through Water.
One of the best books I've read this year.
I'm
It
all
might
alone.
be
I'm sorry,
It's
Evie. I'm
so
sorry.
good.
It is on my list. It is.
it
I
it
feel so
is
bad.
I'm gonna have to kick
it's
you,
juggling
Joanna,
between
until you
one and
read it.
two, between one of the best books of the year for me, at least.
Absolutely,
I was floored.
absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I was already thinking, like before I suddenly dropped out, I was already thinking about like a mid-year book of the year shortlist, and on that shortlist, The Spear would have been number one,
Yeah,
definitely.
The
And
Spear is going to be
it's
fighting for the number one spot on a Baker book, at least for me right now. Um,
yeah,
I was so impressed with this man's writing. It's unfortunate because Evie really hyped up The Spear That Cuts Through Water. I read A Spear That Cuts Through Water. I was like, this guy is amazing. Wow, what a writer. And then I went and I got Vanished Birds. And I didn't connect as much with Vanished Birds. So I'm giving it
okay,
another shot, but I love this man's writing. Vanished Birds was more of a feel good, whereas I thought Spear That Cuts
okay.
Through Water had a little more action to it.
It's got some
Storytelling.
amazing action. There are a couple of scenes
Yes.
in it where I was just like, "Whoa, what the fuck's going
Mhm.
on?" Yeah,
Yes.
it was very, very good. And
Oh, I'm so
such an
excited.
amazing structure. Like I know
Oh,
you, Joanna, you love the framed narrative, the story inside story. This is the most stories inside stories I've ever read.
Yes.
It's like 6 stories all nested inside each other. It's really it's such a good book. Such a
but
good book.
it's the genius comes in how he does it and how he
Yeah,
blend. I mean, he used all three perspectives, and it flowed so well. It was probably one of the best books I've read this year.
I will get to it. I
awesome.
will get to it. I promise.
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
just need to prioritize it. I made like a list of standalones I definitely wanted to get to this year. And for whatever reason, it didn't get on my list for this year. Otherwise, I think I would have gotten to it, but it will be 100% on my list for 2024.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. I don't know about The Vanished Birds. I haven't read it yet.
I have.
I remember you talking about it,
Mhm.
Joanna, and having read The Spear, I was like, okay, I want to read everything this guy's written, and it's not much. So I want to get that, but I haven't read it yet.
That's
Yeah.
how I
I've
felt after I read Spear, and then I read Vanished Birds. I was a little bit, not as impressed, but now, I actually put it in this morning while I went fishing. I started it over, and I'm enjoying it much more than I did the first time.
Wow.
which Baker book?
So I am a White Luck Warrior fan. Wait, White Luck Warrior and
Yeah.
Warrior Prophet. Yeah, White Luck
Yeah.
Warrior is in the Aspect Emperor series. That's the second
Right.
one.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite characters in fantasy I found within this book. Yes, they had amazing characters in that first trilogy, but we run into a non-man called Cleric. Non-man is essentially a person who cannot die. They're immortal. And the
Okay.
only thing they tend to remember is the major pains they have suffered throughout their lives. And, I found that interesting. But there's also another character who is a son of a main character in the first trilogy. And he doesn't have much page time, but when he is on the page, I mean, he owns the page. And two of those characters, some of the best characters I've read. So it would be the Whitelock Warrior and a Spear That Cuts Through Water, juggling for #1 and #2 on my top, and my favorite book of the year.
I'm
I need
definitely
to. I
reading
need
that.
to. I need to think about it. But the Spear is. I'd have a hard time saying the Spear isn't like a clear #1 as far as what I've read this year. I've lately, totally uncool, unhip, I have been reading La Mort d'Arthur. That's the only thing I've been reading for the last month or two. And it's a book that is worth taking your time with because it was written in the 15th century. So the language is 15th century. But it's the classic Arthur story. You know,
I read it in high
Lancelot and
school. I
Gawain
don't remember it at all for some reason, but I doubt we read the whole thing. We probably just read because it looks like kind of big, isn't it? Is it long?
It is pretty big. I mean, it's usually published in either a thick edition or the Penguin edition is 2 books. They split it. It's not short. I mean, this edition, this is like the fanciest. I think I own 5 editions of it.
Wow.
This one is 750 pages. Like it's a leather bound
Yeah.
fancy edition, but yeah, it's not small. It's an epic. You know, it's quite a lot.
I remember it took us a long time to read it in high school, but I still have a hard time believing we read the whole thing. And it's very vague in my memory. And it's kind of funny, Matt, because you were sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say it's kind of funny because you were talking at the beginning of the year how this was going to be your year of rereads. And I did not intend this year to be a big year for rereads for me. I was going to reread A Song of Ice and Fire, but I just kept rereading so many books this year. And so like part of me is like, oh, I should reread that. And I'm like, no, stop rereading. Anyway.
It's funny. I said at the beginning of the year that this would be my year of rereads, and it hasn't. I mean, I have reread some stuff, but like I crapped out on the Song of Ice and Fire reread because I just wasn't keeping up somehow. And I ended up reading Jade City, which I liked, Jade War, which I found boring, so I didn't continue. And the thing that really surprised me, and this would be the competition with The Spear Cuts Through Water, is So Like the Lightning.
Who's that by?
So Like the Light? Too Like the Lightning. Evie joined after all. Evie said she wasn't doing well and wouldn't be able to join, and we talked about The Spear Cuts Through Water, and she couldn't help herself.
Well, hey, that would make me feel better if I recommended a book to a bunch of people and they're just loving it. Like that would make my year, actually.
It was so cute when I started reading it because Evie sent it to me for Christmas, sent me the actual physical book. And when I started reading it, she was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. Are you going to like it or not? I'm not sure if you're going to like it. And boom, I loved it. It's like Too Like the Lightning is science fiction by Ada Palmer. And it's one of the most mind-expanding books I've read in a very long time. It's got a crazy, super interesting view of the far future, which just makes you think about all sorts of things, about equality, about politics, about power, stunning book. And I got super sucked into those, and that was 4 books. I haven't read the 4th one yet, but it was 3 books that I'd never read before. And here's Christopher, Mr. Neva. Welcome back from the park.
Hello.
Hey, Chris.
I will say, Matt, that Sarah reads and a bunch of people on her Discord are reading Spear Cuts Through Water. And so far, the one person that's finished it loves it. So I was like, yes, thank God. Okay, we're good.
It's such a good book. It's such a good book. I mean, I could imagine, like, it's very, in some ways, it's very experimental. You know, like the way he does the narrative and all of that is pretty bizarre, like compared to normal fantasy, whatever you might be used to in the genre. But I love books that do something I haven't seen before. You know, that where I'm like, oh, this is not like every other book. You know, and so I couldn't help but love it.
Some might say it's a highbrow and hoity-toity, but damn it if it is.
I
I'm
don't even think
hoity-toity
it's
and highbrow.
hoity-toity. I don't even think it's hoity-toity. I mean, he's not using like.
We talk about the prose.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. I don't feel like his prose is super like inaccessible or anything. It's pretty straight. It's just the structure is bizarre, you know. Jerome is asking me if I've read Perhaps the Stars yet, which is the 4th book in the Too Like the Lightning Terra Ignota series. I have not read Perhaps the Stars yet because Perhaps the Stars, I can't reach it. It's right behind me, but I can't reach it. It's as thick as the first 2 books and half of the 3rd book. Right? The first 2 books were like kind of approachable feeling size, 400, 500 pages. And then Perhaps the Stars is like this, it's big. So I got a little intimidated. And that was also when I sort of stopped reading so much for a while. So I have not read it yet.
Sorry, I just realized, Chris, your shirt, Spank Books.
Yes, it was going through my head. I'm like, you know what? I don't really care what the meaning of it is. I love it.
I have no idea.
I could only see the Spank.
I want a shirt.
Okay, Spank Books. Okay,
it's actually Daniel Green merch.
Ah.
Yeah, it is. That's
I
right.
have no idea what it means. But I just find it funny, and it's so random that I was just like, okay.
I mean, I can relate, like, for somebody who smells books, you know, I can totally, you know, I'm kind of a step away from spanking it. You know, if I like I get my book and I smell it,
That's
naughty
the best.
boy.
That's the best.
And then I'll put them back. You know what I mean?
And that's why physical books are so awesome. Just that first opening of the book.
I am about to buy another shelf because I didn't realize what starting a booktube channel would do to my shelving. And when I moved in here, I did a video about it ages ago. I had a really big bookshelf built in my new flat, and it's full, and there's a stack next to it. So I need another shelf. Yeah. The Rogue, for you, Dan, probably says Baker's Disciple of the Dog, one of my least favorite books of the year.
I do have Disciple of the Dog. I did see a review by another booktuber, Zara. She didn't like it as much as
well. Okay.
Yeah, I've heard Disciple of the Dog is not as good. I've heard the other one, Neuropath is bonkers from what I've heard.
I heard from Amanda. I think Amanda really liked Disciple of the Dog.
Okay.
Amanda, I can't remember Amanda's channel's name now.
Open Stable.
Thank you so much, Evie. Yeah. So
he also says though that Aspect Emperor is metal as fuck. So
Aspect, yeah, it definitely, you know, I definitely finished the last book, and it's weird. It kind of correlates with me not putting out any videos in a while. That was the first book that I finished that I was like, you know what, I'm just not going to review this book because I kept reviewing every book that I finished. And I wanted to sit with it. And I would say these books are ones that are going to be better on a reread once you can kind of pull everything together. But you know, the ending was just epic in that book, and it left me off after finishing with the Baker Blues, they call it, of, you know, where can I find something similar to this? But you know, you look around, you run into a booktuber named Evie. She recommends Spear That Cuts Through Water, and all of a sudden, boom, you're spanked out of your depression.
Yeah, I had Malazan malaise
Malazan malaise.
after reading the 10 very big books the first time, I was like,
Mhm.
this is ruined fantasy for me. There isn't anything else like this.
I
I
think
know that there
yeah.
just isn't.
It
Baker
makes
did that to
it
me.
feels like I felt a little bit of that after finishing The Crippled God. I felt like a lot of fantasy I picked up after that felt like tonally dead, you know?
Yeah.
Like it didn't have a lot of color to it.
Or
Except
a bit
Evie got me to
simplistic
read. What was that?
or a bit simplistic or, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Evie got you to read what?
She got me to read The Bear.
I've gotten you to read so many
Yeah.
books, so I have no idea what
I
book you're
know.
talking about.
Yeah,
The
I
Bear and the
really hope you
Nightingale
don't.
series. And
No,
that had
you
a
did
lot of-
not just say that. The Bear and the Nightingale series. So Evie recommended me A Spear That Cuts Through Water. I loved it so much, right? And then I asked Evie to do a video for me with pets, and she recommended The Bear and the Nightingale, right? That's the book that you have, Joanna?
Mhm.
So I was going through my library and I ran into I'm like, dude, Evie recommended this. She recommended this Spear That Cuts Through Water. So I borrowed it and I'm actually going to be listening to it within the next couple days.
Yay!
Yeah.
It's very
have a-
different. It's not as dark in tone.
Yeah.
At
So
least
that's what I
as
do
by
love.
paper. Very fairy
Yeah.
I
tale.
have a theory, and probably I'm going to get jumped on for even saying this, but I haven't read Bear and Nightingale. I don't know that much about it. I know it's sort of Russian, sort of folklore based, but I haven't read it. But it sounds like it's quite a divisive book. I heard a number of people who didn't really like it that much, and
think
it
it's divisive.
sounds like the dividing line is genitalia. I've heard a lot of women who like it, and
Oh.
it sounds like a lot of guys don't.
I thought
met
you
a lot
meant
of
like
women who
something
don't
in the
like it,
book, and
though.
I'm like, what?
No, I've
No,
met
no,
a lot of women who don't like it.
Oh, okay.
But I think you're
Okay.
right that the majority of the primary audience that loves it tends to be female.
Yeah.
And I have theories behind that too.
Oh, theories.
Yeah. I might be doing a video in the future.
Oh,
Maybe.
cool. What have you been reading, Nevo? Spanker?
I am just about finished with Joseph Sales' Prince of the Wasteland. It's not very long. It's first book in I think there's 6 of these. This was a recommendation from Leslie, Nerdy Narrative. And it's not at all what I expected. I expected to be like pure fantasy, but it's actually post-apocalyptic real world events. It's like after World War III, and the entire essentially planet gets nuked and all that, and it's extremely dark. It's Dan, you might like this book, but it's pretty vivid. I'm definitely going to continue on with this series, but it's definitely got some very graphic stuff in it.
Yeah, real quick, I downloaded that in my Kindle because of her recommendation. Who's the booktuber that you just mentioned? Nerdy Narrative,
Leslie.
right? Leslie,
Nerdy
yes.
Narrative.
She was the one who recommended like the 3rd book, and then she was loving that 3rd book so much. I was like, let me check this out. And it's actually on Kindle Unlimited if anybody wants to download. I believe the series, few of those books are available if anybody's interested.
I watched a discussion with Joseph Sale and some other people. It was a while back. It was over a year ago. And I just remember being really impressed with what he was saying at the time. And I can't remember what he was talking about. And it's always made me curious about his books. But I do know that I think it's that book or one of his books he dedicated to a lot of booktubers, including Leslie.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to look to that and see if there's some recommendations on here. Maybe some of the later books then. And then I had the privilege of seeing Travis Baldry at our local Barnes & Noble yesterday, along with some other sub-pub like Zach Argyle. Bookborn was there, and a couple other indie authors, and I was able to pick up bookshops in Bone does. So
Ah,
this is definitely gonna be my next read because this was so the Joseph Sale was so dark. I needed like
I'm so
Balance it
jealous.
out.
something light.
I want a copy of that. Dang it. I'm jealous. That sounds awesome.
I'm jealous because we don't
thankfully
even
the Barnes and Noble
have.
exclusive sticker you can peel it off. So
Oh, cool.
Yay.
We don't even have Barnes and Noble over here. In Berlin, we have one really awesome, specifically sci-fi, fantasy, horror bookshop, and they do authors, but like, I don't think it's worth it for American authors or even British authors to come to a relatively small bookshop in Berlin where the audience is going to be maybe 20 people, because it's not big enough to fit more. So we get German authors who I'm not interested in at that shop, but we don't really get any bigger authors, especially not overseas authors.
I think it's good when they get a group together, then you get a good decent sized audience. Like they had a good decent sized audience at this, and there was like no room. I mean, there was people had to stand in like the aisles of the bookshelves and all that, because there wasn't really an event space at the Barnes and Noble here. But I think that helps with these other authors that you don't
of course,
never heard of. So to give multiple authors that space, and I think that helps a little more than just having one author, because like you said, then you only get like maybe like 10 or 20 people show.
Well, at Otherland, this shop in Berlin is called Otherland, and they're awesome and they do all sorts of stuff. But like, if you had 40 people in there, it would be hot as hell and everyone would be standing. It's a corner bookshop, it just doesn't have the space to attract, a big author from America. Although Tad Williams was there once.
Oh wow!
But
was it named after him? Like the bookshop named after his journey?
No, but they give you bookmarks, and there's a quote from Tad Williams on there. The world famous bookstore. He apparently loves the place. I mean, I know people from America that whenever they visit Berlin, they always go to Otherland because it is a really, really good, specifically sci-fi, fantasy, and a little horror bookshop. But yeah, I mean, I play role-playing games with the people who run the shop. Sometimes, they're very hooked into the community and they do role-playing events occasionally. They do author events and all that sort of stuff, but they just don't have any space. It's just not very big. But shout out to the Otherland bookstore. They are really awesome.
Yeah.
Travis Baldry apparently won an award at yesterday's Hugo.
Congratulations.
Yeah, best the Astounding Award for Best New Writer.
Really?
Okay, cool.
That's amazing. Well, I loved Legends and Lattes. I thought it was like, I keep calling it the perfect palate cleanser, but seriously, it really, really was wonderful for that reason.
And you could tell it was him, like there. You even if you like never seen a picture of him or anything like that, you knew which one was Travis Baldry at the panel because it's like, yep, that's Travis.
I looked at that and I had a really snobby reaction to the whole idea of it. Right? I was just like, oh man, cozy fantasy, fuck off. I don't need cozy fantasy. And then I read Monk and Robot by
Becky Chambers.
Exactly. Becky Chambers. I read Monk and Robot, which is totally cozy fantasy. Like nothing bad happens in the entire book. And it's basically just a monk and a robot in a futuristic society kind of getting to know each other and traveling around together and doing cozy things together. And I loved it. I just thought Monk and Robot was so much fun, and it was so nice to have a book where nothing bad happened. Where
Matt,
stakes were low.
Matt, I'm sorry, is that what it's called? Monk and Robot?
The series is called Monk and Robot. The first book, wait a sec, is called.
I know one of them is Psalm for the Wild Built, but I can never remember if it's
Psalm for the Wild Built is the first one, and
Oh.
a prayer for the Crown Shy is the second one.
Oh, there you go. I will forget that.
First of all, I totally love her titles. I mean, I made a video a while ago making fun of stupid fantasy titles that are all the same, and A Prayer for the Crown Shy. You're like, what the hell is that about? It just made me curious, and a Psalm for the Wild Built. I really liked the titles, and I really ended up enjoying it. And then I was like, okay, I've been a snob. I should read Legends and Lattes.
So I admit that I am still kind of a snob. I did read Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, which I think is considered like cozy fantasy, and I enjoyed it. But I don't know. Is it like more? Is it more like cutesy, like plot, or is there like philosophical stuff going on? Like nothing bad happens. So what? Without spoiling any plot
You
stuff.
mean in Monk and Robot, or you mean in
Yeah.
Legends and Lattes? Monk and Robot. I mean, the really general idea is that there's this future sort of utopian society. There's been kind of an apocalypse, like humanity ruined everything, and then they rebuilt, but they rebuilt with an awareness of what caused the apocalypse, and then it's well in the future of that, and the society, it's very focused on like respect for nature, and everybody behaves quite generally quite well with each other. And there is a lot of philosophical stuff around that and how that came to be and how it's not perfect, how it's also a little bit fake maybe. And the main character is someone who is non-binary, like personal identity. They're a monk. So but the monks in this society are essentially therapists. They travel around making tea for people and then talking to them.
Oh.
And they try and make the perfect tea for what they think the person needs. And then they're talking to that person about their problems and trying to offer them some sort of guidance. And a long time ago, essentially before the apocalypse, humanity was dependent on robots. And the robots achieved a certain kind of independent intelligence. And the robot said to humanity, thanks for everything, but we're actually people now, and we're leaving. And they went off into the wilderness, all of the robots, and humanity hasn't seen them for 100 years or something like that. And this monk is wandering the wilderness from town to town and runs into a robot who has been sent by the robots to see what humanity is up to. And then they sort of get together, and the monk is the robot's guide to humanity, kind of, and is introducing them. And humanity gets really excited. Oh my God, the robots are back in touch with us and whatever. It's interesting. I mean, it's not just cutesy at all.
All right, I'm literally ordering it right now because you just sold it to me.
It really does sound great.
I just did too.
Because now I'm wondering, like, do the robots choose humanity again, or don't they?
It's really interesting.
Did we convince them that we are worthy of their help?
It's really interesting, and it's there are sad bits too. It's not like it's all just cheerful all the way through. There are bits where it's philosophical and a little bit sad, but it's easier than some of the ones where you're like, oh my God, this is so gruesome, I can't read it, or I'm super depressed now that I've read that, or whatever. It's overall it's quite cheerful and light compared to
there will be a
lot of stuff we read.
Basically,
sort of. I wouldn't call the ending 100% happy. I was kind of wishing for I had a happy ending in mind that didn't come to be. But I mean, it wasn't soul crushing or anything, Anyway.
Yeah, I did see that, and I was pretty disappointed because I've been wanting to get to Anne Bishop for a while. She actually is on my shelf right now for the Black Jewel series.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Doesn't look like what you said in Discord was very positive. Well, actually, it was a balanced thoughts there. He described it as trashy BDSM, kind of like teenage goth girl kind of vibes. But then he said there were some touching moments and some good gender role flips. So,
okay,
my curiosity.
Yeah, I found it like recently at a half price bookstore. So I was thinking that too. I was thinking Anne Bishop. So it's funny.
Trashy BDSM goth girl stuff doesn't really make me super excited.
Yeah.
No, not me
You know?
neither.
No.
It didn't sound good after reading that description, but he did
No.
offer some really good balanced things about touching moments and humor, flipping of gender
Okay.
roles. So maybe
Okay.
it's worthwhile.
The Rogue says Tad Williams is super popular in Germany. I did not actually know that. Maybe he has a good translator. I can read German. Like, I'm fluent. I can read a novel in German. I just don't really enjoy it. But the interesting thing is, once you have access to another language and you live in a country that's based on another language, whenever I go into other land is split. They have one room that's English only and one room that's German only. And when I look around in the German, most of it is German authors. It's not translations, which is the other way in cinema. Like in cinema, it's mostly Hollywood with dubbing. But in fantasy and science fiction, there are translations, but a lot of it is German authors that I've never heard of other than just randomly seeing them in a bookshop. It's a whole nother world of fantasy and science fiction
Sure.
that I will never read because I don't really want to read books in German. Even
I
if
just
can.
read my first Tad Williams book, which was a little standalone called Caliban's Hour.
I saw
Yeah.
that on one of your videos. How was it?
Yeah. I loved, well, okay. I should preface this. When I started it, I thought it was really cringy. It was probably one of his earliest books, I'm going to imagine. I thought the dialogue felt very stilted. It felt a little forced. I just didn't think it was going to be very good based on that
Okay.
opening. But then as I read on, I just got sucked into it and I loved it. And then I watched a production of The Tempest by Shakespeare because it is based on Caliban from The Tempest.
Yeah, of
So I
course.
could get more context. And that really helped as well. So I actually had a very enjoyable experience, I have to say, even though there were some parts of the writing that I wasn't sure I was all behind. It did make me very excited to read more Tad Williams.
Yeah, I can recommend it. I mean, it's been a long time since I read Ted Williams. I think I read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn in my teens. I think I read Otherland in my 20s, but I remember being engrossed,
Yeah.
like totally into those books and just beginning to end straight through all of them. You know, they're pretty. He's definitely got something.
Yeah. Well, Caliban's
question.
Hour is really short. It's a really
Yeah.
short palate
Yeah,
cleanser
it's-
type of book. And
yeah.
it's all told in first person narration. And it is a framed narrative, by the way. So it's
And it's
but-
told by Caliban.
by Caliban, yeah. So
Okay.
it takes place several years after The Tempest takes place, and he's
Okay.
telling side of the story, which I appreciated because Shakespeare, he creates this character Caliban in The Tempest, but he's more like a comic relief type of character. He doesn't get very fleshed out.
He's
So
kind of
in this
throwaway.
book, you get him fleshed out, and you immediately start to sympathize with him. And I just became engrossed in the story. I felt like after a while, I didn't want to put it down. So it did make me excited. Like I said, there were some things that were a little I wasn't sure about at first, but yeah, I got hooked in, and I can't wait to read more Ted Williams now.
Now you need to now you need to watch Prospero's books by Greenaway. It's
Oh,
a movie directed by what's it, Tim Greenaway? I forget
Huh.
what his first name is. It's really weird, really surreal, but it's also connected to based on kind
The
of
Tempest.
the Tempest.
Mhm.
And it's all about Prospero's library, but it's very symbolic, and there are lots of naked people in it and weird shit going on, and yeah, but it's a cool connection if you know the Tempest.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I can't remember, Matt. Did you start the Dandelion Dynasty? Or did
Not
you
yet. I have the first book on my shelf, on my TBR shelf, but I keep not wanting to have too many series open,
Yeah,
you know.
that's
And
good advice.
Totally
That's
feel
really good advice.
I
Do that.
keep thinking, oh, I want to read that, and I'm like, yeah, but I want to reread all of the Robin Hobb stuff, you know.
So, I mean,
Um,
I think you already saw my message, but like,
yeah,
since I last saw you, I've well, I finished Realm of the Elder Lanes earlier this year. I reread Farseer, reread Fits in the Fool trilogy, and this is something that I've unconsciously, now consciously decided to do. Like, I can reread series as much as I want, but I can only have one new series to me ongoing at a time. I have to finish it before I start.
Okay.
Unless it's like something like Monk and Robot. It's a novella or whatever. That's
it's just two small books. So
yeah. And then the same thing with short stories. Like I'll have one collection and one anthology going on at a time, reading one story from each a day. And then once I'm done, start a new collection, new anthology, whatever. But anyways, back to Dandelion Dynasty. I started and finished the series since I last saw you, and it is akin to Robin Hobb in that Ken Liu and Robin Hobb are able to make these very epic stories, like just in the grand scale of things,
right?
While still being intimate. They're completely like the writing styles, the execution are completely different,
right?
But I just get the same kind of literary reading experience from both of them, and I think you'll love it. I hope you'll love it.
Okay. I mean, everything I've heard about it sounds like something I would totally get into.
Have you read his collections at all? His short story collections?
I've read most of the Paper Menagerie.
Okay.
Yeah. And I loved it. I mean, everything I've read so far, I just like, I mean, some of the stories in there were like, yeah, it's all right. But most of them were pretty epic.
Yeah.
I was really into that collection. But right now I've got LPQ started but not finished. I was meant to be reading that together with Joanna, and that was kind of when I dropped out of things and disappeared. So I finished the first book and I really enjoyed it, and I didn't continue. I've got to finish the Terra Ignota, the To Like the Lightning series by Ada Palmer. I'm halfway through rereading all of the Realm of the Eldlings. What else have I got going?
And you've got to finish that last trilogy because you're uncertain if you finish that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure that the last time I read all of them, that last trilogy wasn't out yet. So I'm pretty sure I haven't read that, or at least not all of it. I don't remember. It's been years. It's been decades, in fact. So it's
It does sound like you've had too many series open at one time, Matt.
I had Dr. Professor Chase. I started his trilogy, only read the first book so far, so I have that to finish as well.
And then you did Book of the New Sun with him. Like, that's so much.
Yeah, but that's a reread at least.
Still.
I've read the Book of the New Sun twice or three times already before that. So and we're talking about he's doing, I told him at some point, because I was kind of out of everything, I told him just go ahead with the chats without me. And he's doing another one, I think he said October 28th, which, depending on how my reading goes, I may join or not. We'll see. But yeah, Book of the New Sun is also, like, you can't read that fast. I can't anyway. Somebody maybe can, but it's a slower read. You have to pay attention and think while you're reading, and you can't just fly through it.
And I'm going to bet that you can't even read it fast on reread. Like,
no, I'm reading it for the third or fourth time, and because I'm reading it slowly and paying attention, I'm noticing a whole bunch of stuff I didn't notice last time. You know, it's a deep book. It's not, I wouldn't say it's difficult necessarily, for someone who's familiar with fantasy and science fiction anyway, but there's so much unreliable narration. Like, Severian is the most unreliable of unreliable narrators.
That's what I hear.
Oh my God. And you're constantly, like, something comes to light or he says something, and you immediately have to start thinking backwards and reevaluating everything, because, like, I mean, one of the things is he says constantly that he has a perfect memory, but then he'll contradict himself. You know, there's an event in the first chapter where he says, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, we all went out and did this thing. And then a couple of chapters later, he's like, yeah, when this guy and a different guy and a different guy and this guy and I were there. And you're like, wait a sec. If you're paying attention, he uses different names. He's talking about different people. He's saying that he and a group of people were there. And then he says later that he and a different group of people were in the same place at the same time. You're like, either your memory's not perfect or you're fucking with me. Which is it? I don't know what's going on. And it happens all the way through the whole series.
Why not both?
Where yeah, exactly. And it becomes clear. It kind of becomes clear at the end what's going on and why his memory seems to be actually not so perfect and whatever. But they're really, really good, but they are deep and complicated. Yeah.
Wolf seems to be, at least for me, what I'm starting to call nightstand authors, like a Baker, an Erickson. Those books are the books I have to have on my nightstand. Those are the ones I have to read before I go to bed. When I don't have dogs running up and down, when I don't have dinner to cook, or when I'm not on break at work or something like that. These are books, these are authors that I need to read in complete silence, with nothing happening, nothing going on.
Have you read any Wolf?
No, so it's actually Kindle Unlimited again. It's coming through the clutch. Has The Shadow of the Torture, and I downloaded it yesterday. So
excellent.
This is how I read. This is why I'm calling off all TBRs, man. So, I'm buddy reads for the time being.
Tori did a video recently about that.
Yeah.
Tori did an awesome video about that recently that I just saw today. Like today, I was just getting back into BookTube and watching a bunch of people's videos. And she basically also said, like, forget TBRs. I'm just reading what I want to read when I want to read it.
I find that I kept getting really aggressive with TBRs and then finding that I couldn't commit to all the books that I put on said TBR. Like Dan said, the buddy reads. I want to read with people. It's fun. And I am still committed to, I'm in a Malazan buddy read, and that I've been very commitment to, and that's going to be definitely the one commitment I make is the Malazan.
You guys are blowing through them too.
Yeah.
Where are you at? I think this is actually the longest in a live chat that I've ever done where I have not said the word Malazan.
You and me both.
It's actually pretty amazing.
We just finished Dead House Gates, so we're all on Memories of Ice. So far, everyone's still there. There's people that are ahead of us. Dan, you're at what, book 7?
Dude, I started it in April.
Oh, okay.
And I am still.
You're still reading it. Okay.
I'm right there at the end. That's the end. That little part right there. That's it. That's what I got right there. This is it.
I can't do that with Malazan. I'm so
taking my time.
Like every book, it takes maybe 100, 200 pages, but then I'm like, I have to keep going.
I talked about this with Tori on her channel because the first year that I had a BookTube channel was when I decided, okay, I'm just going to prioritize Malazan Book of the Fallen. I will read other stuff, but that's going to be my priority. And it was kind of a lonely journey on my channel for a long time because there were some months, and I did give up TBRs half the time because some months that was all I read. Like the month of December, all I read was The Crippled God. Like I can't just blow
The
through
Crippled
those
God
books.
is also a doorstopper. I mean,
It is.
like it's
That's
such
true.
a chunky book. Like that reading that in 1 month is actually an achievement.
And I think the reason why we're hanging on, all of us have been hanging on to this read, is because we're not like a book a month. We are spreading it out a little bit to, like, for instance, Memories of Ice is at least a 2-month read for us. So we're not like in a huge, like, we didn't set like hard standards, like let's try to do a book a month. There's no way you can do that. I think Malazan is just too dense to do in 1 month per book. Plus we all want to read other stuff too. So
yeah,
that's one of my book reading achievements that I've unlocked. I read the entire Malazan Book of the Fallen in 3 months.
Wow.
That's insane.
But
couldn't
I
do
was
I
I
couldn't do
was
that.
You
I was
unemployed?
I was unemployed. I was unexpectedly single. It was during the pandemic and we were in the middle of a lockdown and I was depressed and had nothing else to do. So I was just like, I say that there was a period in my life that Stephen Erickson basically saved my life. And that
Mm,
was it. I just
yeah.
got up every morning and read Malazan until I went to bed.
That's
And oh my God, it was too much. It was definitely too much, but it was also an awesome way to do it. You know,
I kind of see what
It's a
you
great
mean,
place to
though,
get lost in, definitely.
because I
Yeah.
know for me, I read the last 3 books back to back, but I
Yeah.
actually really wanted to. I just felt propelled on the journey. I'm like, I'm going with this. And it's like the most immersive journey in a way. It feels like you're just in another world. I don't know how to explain it. Like coming back into the world after going through that is something else.
It's super immersive. I mean,
Mhm.
it feels like, I mean, sometimes fantasy worlds, you can see very clearly that in the world building, the author was really, really turned on by this thing and that thing and another thing. But everything else behind it feels like cardboard cutouts, kind of. You know, it's like you just, yeah, we don't get into that too much. But with Malazan, there isn't anything I can think of in the entire world that doesn't feel like he thought about it. You know,
Mm.
like he has an idea about everything. And these ideas just come up out of nowhere. And suddenly we're taking a really close look at whatever, I don't know. And you're like, oh, I didn't know about them. And you obviously have thought a lot about them. And suddenly they're here. And then 3 books later, they become really important as well. And, you know, it's amazing. I just love that series.
I'm just
I need to get
amazed
back to
on
it.
how so many characters are in these books and how you can differentiate each character. Each character, whether they're major or minor, just have their own voice. And he's given like a unique voice to each and every one of them. And they all have like at least, from my memory, at least their like moment in the sun, so to speak, you know, where they get that moment where they shine as an individual. And it's just amazing to me.
Yeah, and I mean, he specifically the minor characters, especially the minor sort of marine characters, the soldier characters. Yeah, a lot of them get like in the whole 10 books, they get like 10 sentences, but they get these really intense spotlight moments, which were some of the coolest bits for me. You know, and the people involved in it might have been Fiddler and then a couple of others, but the couple of others were just as awesome in that moment as Fiddler, even though Fiddler is like all through the entire series. And these guys, like I said, you know, they got maybe 5 or 6 or 10 sentences.
Coltane. That's Coltane all day.
Coltane
wasn't even a point of view. He wasn't
he's
even a point of
hardly
view.
in the book.
Yeah.
He had like
There are like 3 or 4
lines.
scenes
They
with
were
him
strong
at all.
lines.
Yeah.
You love that guy.
He's such a personality and he's hardly in the book.
He's a presence, though. My goodness.
Yeah.
He's a
Big
presence in the
Yep.
series.
Loved it. How he did it.
Incredible the way he does that. It's incredible. And I will say, like, there were definitely some characters I latched onto in those first few books. But I felt like as the series goes on, I did feel like more and more like a heartfelt connection to a lot of characters. I think I got more and more invested as I went on the series. It was interesting the way he did that. And he still keeps introducing characters through book 10. It's crazy.
I've been definitely more connected to more characters in his books, in the Malazan books, than any, and also Esselmont's books. Like I've only read Night of Knives so far, but in Night of Knives there are also some characters where I'm like, wow, awesome character.
Temper, yeah.
And it's kind of a side story, you know. It's a backstory story. You know?
It's kind of like a Halloween book in a way. It's a good Halloween book, I think. Night of Knives.
Matt, did you read the original 10, or did you like? I know some people said there's like books you should intermingle in between some of the books, or do you just read the 10 and then?
I'm a very strong supporter of read the 10 books first.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to reread them, put in the other ones anywhere you want or whatever. But I would never recommend to somebody First of all, because the 10 books is more than enough. It's
Yeah.
big enough. You know, it's like if you want to intersperse all the other books where they kind of belong in the timeline or something like that, then you're recommending to someone who's never read any of them, here's 25 books you should read, you know, and that's crazy. No, I read just the 10.
Okay.
And I was sort of like Joanna. When I started my channel, I was doing this Malaz everything read, where the idea was I was going to read them all of the Malazan books, Esselmont and Erickson, in publication order. And what I've done so far is I've read up to Reaper's Gale in the 10. I've read some of the Beauchelin and Corbel Broach short stories. I read Night of Knives, and I haven't read any of the other Esselmont, and I haven't continued yet because I got up to Reaper's Gale, and Reaper's Gale is like as thick as my leg, and I was kind of like, oh, it just doesn't fit right now because I meant to read all these other things. So I think I overdid it. Like in December, I got really excited about read-alongs and marathons and all of that. And I joined Joanna and other people with Song of Ice and Fire. And I was in a marathon thing. And I was, you know, and I just, by the end of January, I was like, I don't want to read. I'm sick of reading. And that wasn't good. So yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to be much more like Tori was saying, yeah, fuck off, Jerome. Yeah, no, you were right, Jerome.
I was
just excited and optimistic about it, you know, but
yeah,
it was too much.
I was actually feeling bad when I started the A Song of Ice and Fire reread along, because I was excited about rereading it and planning that out in my schedule. But then when I saw at the beginning anyway, and this is the way all read-alongs are, you always have a lot of enthusiasm, a ton of people joining in, and then people drop off as you go on. That's just the reality of things.
Yeah.
But I felt guilty because so many friends I had on BookTube were adding it to their TBRs, and I already knew that many of them had like 20 ongoing series. And I was like, oh no, please, you know, do not feel pressured to do this to yourself if you feel like you already have a lot on your plate. Because I hate that for people to get burnt out. I don't ever want to contribute to that.
No, I mean, for me, it wasn't pressure. It was ignorant excitement. You know, because
we all have that.
one, I was like, oh, a bunch of my really awesome BookTube friends that I really like are doing this. I want to do it with them. That's cool. And I know it's a really good series because it's like a third reread for me. And I want to reread things this year. And, you know, but I also joined the Shogun read along and ended up not really liking Shogun very much and not finishing it. And the marathon that was on the Keymark Discord, and, you know, just too much at once.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think that's where I started to kind of fall a little with the Keymark Discord competition or whatever to read. And I just, I dropped everything I was reading at that time, and I picked up everything new starting April. And I did that, and, you know, it was fine, but I think us as at least content creators, we I don't care what people tell you. Don't worry about. We put pressure on ourselves. There's no way that we're not going to do that. You know,
because the thing is, your viewers don't care. Like
They
they
don't.
do not care if you have a
You're
TBR
right.
video or not. They do not care if you're part of a readathon or not.
Yeah.
It's you putting the pressure on yourself for that. I know for me personally, I have been in a couple of readathons, and I've just decided for me, no way.
Yeah.
That's just a recipe for burnout for me. So
Yeah, I thought I got burnt out after that readathon, and you know, I kept reading a few books, but, you know, like at least for me, I never I never had a schedule. You know, I kind of just post videos when I want to post videos, and, you know, I remember doing one video.
It's a weird mix though. It's a weird mix though, because, like, you know, Jerome, who said, I told you so. I know that no matter what I do, Jerome's going to be watching my videos, because Jerome has been along since the ride began. He comments all the time. He's awesome, right? So I'm not I'm not worried about that. But if you look at my numbers, it's very clear. There are videos I like doing, like art books, like fantasy and science fiction art books, which nobody seems to do videos about. I love doing those. Nobody watches them. You know, like I can depend on them getting like 100 views, 150, maybe 200 if they're doing really well. So that's clear. But I like doing them because I love those books and I've collected particular artists. I've got all their books and I like doing them, letting people know about it. But there are other things. If I do a TBR video, I know it's going to get a ton of views, you know, because everybody looks for TBR. So if you actually are paying attention to views, to the numbers, then there is a big motivation to do TBRs. But like, I don't care about the numbers more than I care about my own reading enjoyment. That's the thing.
That's
So I'm not doing those things anymore. The readathons and the extensive TBRs and all that sort of stuff. I just
yeah. That's just sort of kind of what happened to me. I was honored to be a captain to one of the Keymark readathons, and this was in the midsummer. It was a lot of fun. Our team won, which was, you know, everybody was really happy. But keeping track of the numbers and keeping track of what everybody read, and then you have to get on to Goodreads and Amazon to see if they did a review because they get points for those. And then yeah, it was a lot of work, and I'm trying to pressure myself to read, and then I just got burned out. In like the last 2 months, I really haven't done anything. I've been reading on the side, but besides some live streams with Laura and our Wheel of Time discussions, I haven't really been online. YouTube, I just got burned out, and it's just, and then Tori's video just kind of woke that up in me. It's like, I need to just start picking books up that I'm just in the mood for. And when I get back to videos, I think I'm just going to do like a weekly wrap up. This is what I'm reading this week. Not make any plans for next week. It's just going to be a weekly basis, not like a month plan or anything like that.
Yeah, no, Germans actually have a phrase for that. Germans call that Freizeitstress, free time stress. That you're organizing your free enjoyment time in such a way that it creates stress for you.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I'm gonna literally write that word down because I feel like that describes my life. So
it's 2 words. It's 2 words.
There we go. Okay.
Germans do like combining words to make really, really long words. But that's not one of them. I'll write it in the comments. Freizeit stress. Yeah.
Got it. Cool.
All right, guys, I just want to let you know that my wife's football team is coming on in about 5 minutes. So it's going to get really loud in this household.
Is it
because they're not doing so well? No.
Oh, no.
I married a Steelers fan. And
is that allowed?
What's that?
Is that allowed?
It's so if you're an Eagles fan, you're not allowed to marry a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Oh, okay.
You're okay with marrying anyone else, but if they're a Dallas Cowboys fan, like that's the line. Steelers fan is okay. They're not even in our division, but they are in our state. So there is some animosity here. But yeah, she's gonna start yelling if you haven't heard her. She's in the background already. Waiting for kickoff, so I'm gonna probably jump off now. Matt, I'm so happy you came back, buddy. Thanks for having me on this.
Thanks for joining us.
People, it was my pleasure, and
great to have you here.
Yeah, hey, I can't wait to do it again. We'll see you guys soon. Okay.
Take care, Dan.
See you, Dan. Enjoy the game.
Have a good Sunday, everybody, in the chat and online. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, so that game is starting. My husband's game just finished with the Patriots, and apparently they squeaked out a win, which is a miracle. And so he's like, "We're gonna play Mario," and I'm like, "Yes, we will play Mario." So I have to drop as well to go play Mario.
What Mario game?
Yeah.
What Mario game?
It's the new one that came out, Mario Wonder, Super Mario Wonder, or something like that. It looks pretty good from what I've seen. So we'll see. But I did want to really quickly add, speaking of Malazan, even though I DNF'd Dead House Gates and I probably will never go back to Malazan, I'm so sorry. I have really gotten into Glen Cook, so the Black Company.
Ah, okay.
I am supposed to read White Rose next month. So
That's
I can't
interesting. So
have
you-
you love Cook? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I read Black Company twice.
Yeah,
Okay.
long time ago, but
Yeah.
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 I was warned that the first book, the titular
The
book,
Black Company. Yeah.
was like the worst one of the bunch, and it gets really good with Shadows Linger. I loved the Black Company
I like the first
so
book.
much.
It's not a bad. I don't think anyone would say it's a bad book, but it's not the best of the series.
Right.
You know.
It
But I
really
love it so much.
surprises me though, Evie, because because for one thing, Stephen Erickson was very influenced by Glen Cook.
Yeah.
Like some of the
totally.
Malazan books are even dedicated to Glen Cook. I've seen some
Yeah.
dedications to him.
Yeah.
But the only thing that's made me unsure about the Black Company is I feel like I get the impression maybe this is a wrong impression, that it's a little more military based than magic based.
It
But
is.
maybe, and I've heard there's some wild magic in there too. So I don't know.
I
There's
mean,
Definitely
generally,
magic in there.
yeah.
There's definitely magic in there. And there's so the military aspect is it is a company. It is a military company, but it's not like, oh, these huge battles are going to be in so detailed. The thing that I loved about the Black Company and just really drew me into Glen Cook's writing style is he's writing this company so realistically as an actual military group and a military squad. This is how soldiers would talk to each other, because I grew up, my dad was in the military, my brother was in the military, so I was just surrounded by that, and he just got the camaraderie of soldiers.
He was
well.
in Vietnam. Glen
Yeah.
Cook was in Vietnam himself.
Yeah.
He is
And
military. Yeah.
the way he's able to bring that across into a fantasy world and into this story. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's been like 2 sentences on a battle and then like 5 pages on a card game. I love that. That's so good. And the banter.
I mean, you haven't
good.
read all of Malazan, Evie, but for Joanna, if you like the soldier characters and you like the day in the life of a soldier parts, which is some of my favorite parts of Malazan, that comes straight out of the Black Company. Because it's exactly what Glen Cook is doing a lot of the time. And there is magic, but like the military company, they're mercenaries, right? The Black Company are mercenaries. The mercenary company, there's more or less no magic, but they're dealing with a lot of threats external to the mercenary company that are, oh my God, the world's going to end kind of magic. Yeah, so it's definitely a magical world, but the soldiers, it's not like Malazan where you have a wizard essentially in every squad,
But there are wizards.
They exist, but it's not quite like in Malazan. You have a company and they have probably 3 wizards, and every company has preferably like a main mage and a group of mages, or you have squads that are like a bunch of mages together, that kind of thing. It's not exactly the same, but most of the magic, real crazy magic, is external to the company, and and it
mostly happens off page, like it's alluded to, but it doesn't go into detail. Because I guess the thing that I really liked about another thing that I liked about the Black Company is the way that it was framed. Like, you get the perspective of Croker telling the story, and he's the one writing these annals of the history. So he's glossing over some things, being more specific about other things. He's purposely leaving things out to make people look better, and he's conscious of those decisions. And so because he doesn't, he's directly called to some scenes because somebody wants it written down.
He's the archivist.
I'm like, why did you DNF Dead House Gates? Like, this is going way over my head now, Evie.
I don't get it either. I don't get
because
it either.
of the influence of that. Like,
Duaker is to me, like 100% clearly inspired by Croker.
By Croker.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say I got that totally. Yeah.
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 Duiker showed up and I was like, oh, it's Croker from Black Company. Yeah.
But I
mean-
understand too, because I wasn't, as a first time reader, I wasn't high on Dead House Gates, honestly. I kind of struggled through it, like getting into it. And it wasn't until after I finished it that months later I realized I couldn't stop thinking about it and what he did with that story. But given everything you're high about with the Black Company, I'm like, how are you not? I just don't get it.
I get
don't
it,
get
Evie. I
it.
mean, I was really slow at Dead House, and I was like worried. I was like, "Oh no, am I not liking this?" But it took me a little while on the beginning part of Dead House, but then it like
Cook's
took off, yeah.
prose and structure is also a lot more approachable. Like Malazan can be pretty opaque for a while. You know, you really have to pay attention and collect clues and stuff to really get all of what's really happening. And Black Company is a bit more straightforward. You know, the story is not obscured pretty much at
I'm
all.
really
you know?
surprised. Now, I would say with Malazan, I feel like I just want to keep going out of my way more to talk about there are major trigger warnings in Malazan. Like there's a lot of sexual violence, and I feel like that just doesn't get talked about enough, especially in later books, to both men and women and to children too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
the children thing was really very disturbing.
Yeah, there
very
are a lot
disturbing
of
content.
rough things, especially in the later books. In the first 3 or 4 or 5, maybe not so much, but towards the end, there's some really rough stuff.
Oh,
There
wow,
have been
really?
people who have
It's worse.
DNF'd book 9 just based on one specific chapter. So
Yeah.
I just feel like I need to do a better job as a Malazan, somebody who's read the series, to be like talking about that. But I still think the things you've latched onto, the biggest criticism I hear from people who don't connect with Malazan, like one of the biggest criticisms is the military content. Like, oh, I'm so bored with the banter between the soldiers. Now people either love it, but a lot of people who can't get behind it, it's usually the biggest thing that takes them away from the series. So I'm like, if you love that stuff, and I know you love weird, and I know you love interesting narrative structures, I don't know. I mean, do what you want, and if you want to not read again Dead House Gates,
I would
don't do it.
I would also say, knowing what I know about you, Evie, I think it's worth trying again.
I mean, maybe a couple years down the road, I might try it
Yeah.
again. Now that I've got Realm of the Elderlings finished and Dandelion Dynasty and stuff like that, I might give it another try. But not at the top of my priority list.
Understand.
But with that said, I'm gonna drop down.
You need to go.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm so happy to see your face, Matt.
Likewise.
And yeah, I'm happy that you are still here in general. Also on BookTube still. So
Yeah, I am. I will hopefully be seeing you around soon.
yes. All right. Have a good night.
Bye, Evie.
Bye,
See ya.
Evie. Take care.
Yeah, so we've done our Malazan conversion duty.
I reread book 5 this year, by the way, Matt. I don't know if you were around to hear about that.
Book 5, which is book 5?
Midnight Tides.
Midnight Tides. Oh, yeah. Wow. What a
Yeah.
book. I also read it again this year. I mean, as part of my sort of ongoing rereading. Midnight Tides was, for me, first reading, the hardest book.
Really?
Yeah, to start with, because I got into it and I was like, oh, fuck.
New
We're in a
continent.
new place again with totally new people. Nobody I know yet. I don't even know where we are. I don't know why we're here. I don't know what this has to do with anything else. I don't know anything. And you're pissing me off, Steve. And by the end of it, I was like, okay, maybe this is one of my favorite Malazan books.
I think it's my second favorite book in the series.
Yeah. See you, Jerome.
Bye, Jerome.
Take it easy.
I'm excited to follow your journey, though, Christopher, as you're continuing. the series.
I'm actually surprised. The one thing because Gardens of Moon was a reread for me, like way back when it first came out. Like I had the original like Tor hardback that it came out in, and I love that book so much, but I don't know what made me like just stop after that. And I had the whole series on. I think I was working. I think I was a bookseller at the time too, so I was just picking up books as they were coming into the store. But everything I was hearing about Dead House Gates was like you like one or the other, and it's like all new cast. But I was actually surprised how much returning characters came into
It's
Dead
not
House
all
Gates.
new.
And
Yeah, it's
Midnight
not-
Tides is really all
Midnight
new.
Tides is
Midnight
everyone's
Tides
new.
is the one
except,
where
like,
it's all
one
new.
character.
Nobody.
Except for
Nobody from the
Troll.
previous
Are you
book.
sure?
Troll's-
No, I'm
Troll's a
kidding.
recurring character, and that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
But I do
Slightly.
I credit Steven Erikson, just that one book, Gardens of the Moon, to my own writing. He is kind of an influence for me. So, and Glen Cook too. It's because I do like those like moodier aspects of their writing. I probably don't want to go down the graphic way with like children especially, but yeah, it's just I'm enjoying the journey. So and I'm glad, like I said, I'm just glad we're taking our time with this reading. It's not, so nobody feels the pressure. We can enjoy what we're reading. And if a book takes a little longer than a month into the second month, then that's fine.
So from what I understand, Steven Erikson is writing a book on writing. I don't know when that's coming out.
Oh, that'd
but
be awesome. Yeah.
I know. I I'm not a writer, but I love reading books on writing for whatever reason. I love learning about writing. And so I will pick it up as soon as that comes out.
Yeah, I'm a little
Definitely let
nervous
you know.
because I like Stephen Pressfield, and I read his War of Art, and I did not like that book at all. It was just
I
it was
read
too weird for me. It was like very. I mean, he admits that this is what worked for him. He's going to write the book that talking about points that work for him when he writes, and well, any kind of thing. You don't have to be a writer to read that book. It's just anything you want to approach, like on an artistic level or even like on a job level or something. But just some of his points just I didn't click with. It's a lot about all these things that get in your way in your life, and it was like including like your family and your friends, and I'm like, no, these people are like supporting me. They're like pushing me to continue when I don't want to, when I have to deal with self-doubt, which he does touch upon, and I do appreciate some of those points. But when he's talking
he
about
maybe
like,
had a not so supportive family and friend group.
yeah, I don't know, maybe, but it makes it sound like they were like distractors in his life as compared to things that were like pushing him and promoting him to continue.
That's interesting. I read Gates of Fire earlier this year, and it was an interesting experience because I could appreciate a lot of things he was doing as a writer, and at the same time, I just didn't emotionally connect to the story that much. I felt like I had to work to invest in it. Very strange.
Yeah, I get that. I that was one of my earliest historical fiction reads, and I think maybe if I read it again today, I think I would probably see it on that kind of level again. I don't think I'd have it as high on the pedestal, so to speak, as I would if I read it today. But it was like one of my first, so I think it was like, oh wow, this is great, and I was a lot younger too. So
I think books on writing are. I mean, I'm not really someone who writes a lot, but I've read a few of those books, and I think that dichotomy. I think George R. R. Martin talked about it: the architect or the gardener.
Mhm.
Like any author is going to tell you to write the way they write. If they're writing a book about writing, they're going to write about what they know, and that's the way they do it. And if they're an architect and you're a gardener, it's going to sound stupid to you. Like it's not going to work. And if it's the other way around, it's not going to work. And if it lines up, like I read, I think it's called On Writing by Stephen King.
Stephen King, yeah, that's a good one.
I loved it, which tells me that I'm probably more of a gardener kind of person, because he's talking about characters who are like going off and doing shit on their own, and he's just trying to keep them going in the right direction. And he's not a planner, and I think if someone who was totally a planner read that, they'd think it was ridiculous and it wouldn't help them at all. It's such a personal thing. Every time writers talk about the way they write, it sounds like it's almost individual,
Yeah.
that a lot of it doesn't overlap. The main advice that seems to be relatively universal is do it a lot, which is like advice for doing anything well.
And read a lot.
And read a lot. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Read a lot and write every day. and everything else is just
and not just in the genre you're writing in either.
Yeah.
Just you have to read other things too.
broadly. Yeah.
Yeah, if I
Um,
were, I would imagine workshops would be helpful though. You know, just getting feedback from other
people
people,
to talk to. Yeah.
and then they can kind of reflect back on what you're doing and how it's
Yeah.
translating. I think that would probably be the best way to go about it. But I would
There's a
imagine
little-
it's very difficult.
Yeah, there's a little mini group of us that are actually doing that right now. Where it's myself, Laura from Fantasy Awash, her husband, who's also writing, Caleb, and Mary from Mary Reads Books, and we have like a little group we're actually doing that with. So, and it's very helpful to get that early feedback because my books, like I've been writing this for like 12 years. It's so I know some of those earlier chapters are like just pure garbage from, after experience of writing and reading a lot more. So getting that feedback is always really beneficial, definitely.
It's also because of the internet. I think a lot of things have changed and made things a lot more interesting. I remember recently I turned on Apple TV and I saw that there was a series on called Silo. And I'd heard from people that it was good, and I started watching it, and I was like, oh, this is Wool, right? It was a book called Wool, is where that series came from. And 15 years ago, I think, I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and I was interested in writing. I was trying to write myself. I never really got going. And there was one of them, which was an author reading chapters of his book, which had never been published, right? He was writing a book, and every time he got a chapter finished, he would read it, audiobook format, and put it out as a podcast. So an episode of his podcast. And it was Wool. It was this book. And nobody knew who he was. He'd never published a book. He'd never gotten anywhere or done anything. And he was writing this book and putting it out as a podcast, and that was it. And that led to him getting a deal and eventually getting an Apple TV produced television series based on his book, right? Because he just put it out there for free, unlicensed, no agent, no anything. And it got to be so big as a podcast and got him so much feedback that he revised everything and eventually ended up with an actual contract and published book, which turned into a TV series eventually. So, I mean, there are a lot of opportunities maybe for authors that didn't exist, in the 70s or the 80s or something.
That's true. That's a good point. Well, you guys,
Matt
I
from
think
Hobbit
Jamie-
Hole Books is saying he's reading Gods and Moon right now and loving it.
Yay, I'm not
Excellent, Matt.
surprised. I'm not surprised that he's loving it. I've got to get going. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
Matt, I'm sorry. It's like 1:30 here. I got to eat lunch, but
Oh man. Okay.
where are you living? Where do you live?
I live in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah.
Oh, 1:30 p.m.
Yeah, 1:30 p.m.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I don't know why.
But yeah, we
I
have.
thought
Yeah, we have
He'd have to live in Russia or something for
Yeah.
it to be 1:30 in the morning.
Probably.
But Joanna, it was nice, and Matt, I'm so glad to see you back.
Thank you guys
This makes me
for
so
joining
happy.
me so spontaneously. I was really like, well, I don't know, maybe I'll be here alone, and it turned out to be quite a good group. So, thank you very much. Good to see you both.
Wonderful
See you
seeing
again
you.
soon.
Talk again soon. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Ciao. So, for the few people that are still in the chat, I am also going to take off because it is 10:30 in the evening here in Berlin. It's really good to do this again. I am so glad to see so many of you in the chat. I'm so glad to have had a couple of booktuber friends join me. It's really been fun. Keep an eye out. My first video in a long time is going to be out tomorrow, basically explaining why the fuck I have not been around for 5 months. Good to see you all again. Hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy your Sunday evening and see you again soon, I hope. Bye-bye.